Hi, I'm Jessie Heron, host of Rediscover Your Story, a podcast for marketers who need a break from everyday learning, but still want to hear from like-minded professionals on all things creative. Today, we have Damian Hoskins from Elementz. Damian stopped in at Resolve, and we were able to shoot the shit on all things hip-hop culture. I learned a ton. Also, guess who's dope? This girl.
So Elementz with a Z is a hip hop cultural arts center, which is DJing, MCing, graffiti, and breakdancing. Those are industries, right? Yeah. Those are creative pathways. And so we definitely want our kids to be able to understand that those things are possible. I want the city of Cincinnati to recognize that it has a whole resource, a plethora of individuals who can solve all those problems. And I want the city to change because of that.
Hashtag, but first, if you're loving Rediscover Your Story, go ahead and smash that bell and subscribe on YouTube. And don't forget to follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, and wherever you can get your streaming content. And hey, if you're interested in who we are at Resolve, we're a video content agency, and we can help you create your video content marketing just like we're doing with the podcast. Please follow along at our website, resolve.com. That's RESLV.com. Subscribe to our newsletter and never hesitate to reach out to us on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. We can't wait to hear from you. Continue to listen to this episode so you can rediscover his story. Hi, Damian.
Hi, how are you?
I'm pretty good. Thanks for asking.
Good.
How are you?
I am good.
Yeah. We have to just bring this up because I think it's funny that you were yawning and you were telling me that you've been getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning. You can't tell me those things unless we're going to talk about it here a little bit, just a little bit. But you've been getting up since 3 o'clock in the morning since 1995.
Correct. Yep.
And
the story is,
I need to hear the story again. Yeah.
I went to Central State University, my alma mater, absolutely love it. However, I probably unwittingly chose to have an 8 o'clock calculus class, and I cannot work or study or think when there's a lot of noise around.
Now, what year is this? Freshman year?
My freshman year, yep.
Freshman year, you took calculus?
Yes.
Oh, you're smart.
Well, theoretically.
Okay.
But so, I had to improvise. I had to do some workarounds. And, while the dorm was loud, I tried to sleep. It's not very hard for me to fall asleep. My wife will tell you, I can fall asleep. I'm not narcoleptic, but I'm pretty close.
Yeah. Same. Oh, I love to sleep.
Oh my God.
I can sleep.
I take lots of naps.
Do you?
Yeah.
Okay.
But, when everybody was awake, I was asleep. And then when everybody went to sleep, which was roughly around 1:30 or 2 o'clock in the morning, I would wake up, do my homework, and get prepared for my 8 o'clock calculus class. Unfortunately, though, it hasn't stopped. It became something that was a part of, my circadian rhythm.
Yeah.
I would just every day at 3 o'clock without an alarm clock, I would get up and I could not go back to sleep. So I had to do something constructive. And I've been doing that for about, 20 years or so?
No, it's longer than that.
It's a long time. It's a very long time. It's a little bit
longer than that. Okay, so this is what I'm going to take from that.
Yeah.
I'm going to make a lot of assumptions. I'm going to assume that 1, you are a very smart person because you took calculus. Okay, these are my assumptions. Just let me roll with the assumptions.
All right.
2, you're a nice person. So if there's a picture of us standing next to each other, I am so much shorter than you. You're a giant person. You could have gone out and told those people to literally screw off.
Yes.
And that you needed your study time.
Could have.
So you're a nice person.
Yeah.
And 3, you are hella prepared at all times. Am I wrong on all of these, or am I at least right a little bit?
You are correct. You are correct. I tend to, one of the reasons why I tend to try to veer towards being nice is because I'm pretty big. And I also studied martial arts for quite a few years.
Oh, so you could have killed them.
Well, I don't know about that, but
Steve, are you feeling safe in this room? I feel real safe in this room. I've never felt so safe.
I'm so protected right now.
I am protected.
You are all protected. And then, so it's that. And then I try to be over prepared.
I can tell.
My uncle used to have this theory. He would say, if you stay ready, you don't have to get ready. And so that's what I sort of live by. Yeah.
Well, okay. So then let's just dive in a little bit about you, because I went there already, right? Yeah. But I think that's awesome. I mean, the fact that you are actually doing something with the time. Now, again, you said to me that at 3:00 this morning, you were up and you were working on your closet, your master closet. However, asterisk, that was in the garage. It was not to the disruption of your wife's sleep, because you like to be married. That's another thing I was going to say. I deduct from you. You like to be married.
She's a very nice person, and I have to give her. But I'm also I take all that energy, and I was actually working in the garage as we renovate our master closet because she needs more space, and that old wire hanger stuff that, those fake shelves that you get from Home Depot, those fall apart. And so I recently got into woodworking. And so I got a whole lot of equipment. And so I'm just making stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, then let's dive into how you got involved with Elementz.
Yeah.
Why is this important? Yes. I mean, tell me about it. And do we both know Fred? Was Fred?
Yes.
Okay, yes. Right? I sent that email, but I wasn't sure.
I met Fred once, though, in a virtual call during COVID.
Oh, shoot.
And he is at Clover Nook. I still believe he's at Clover Nook.
He's at Cincinnati Children's now.
Oh, so he's left Clover Nook.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. We got to recently do a video about him at Cincinnati Children's.
Oh, okay.
But he was the one that told me about Elementz originally.
Yeah, prior to me being a part of Elementz, I think Fred was on the board or volunteered or something like that.
Yeah.
And when I met him, we were trying to figure out how to do some kind of collaboration, particularly for students who are interested in DJing who are visually impaired.
That's a Fred thing.
Yeah. And also I didn't realize, I could tell almost immediately that Fred was from Brooklyn. You can say his accent is very...
so, like what are those shirts, like straight outta?
Straight out of Brooklyn.
His would be like Brooklyn.
Yes. And so then we start talking about hip hop and all that sort of stuff.
He's one of the coolest people.
He's a very nice guy.
He's a great guy.
Very nice guy. Yes. And he also shared with me a lot of stuff about people who are visually impaired and a lot of the mistakes that we make about sort of categorizing them. And so we were still trying to develop that collaboration. It was during COVID. But
stupid.
Me and Elementz, to go to your original question.
Yeah, tell me about it. Yeah. How did you get connected with Elementz? Because you were just saying Elementz was there before you.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, Elementz is actually about 23 years old.
Had no idea.
Yeah. And so Elementz is a hip hop cultural arts center. And it started as the result of the murder of Timothy Thomas. Timothy Thomas was a young African-American male who was killed by Cincinnati Police Department in 2001.
Wow.
Yeah. And so during that time, there was a lot of civil unrest in the city, particularly in the West End and the Over the Rhine area. But a lot of people converged on that space, particularly around the space where he was murdered. And there was protest. There was issues with the police. There were challenges between the Black community and the police department, as there seems to be in many cities. But the murder of Timothy Thomas sparked all of that, and it also sparked 4 young men to try to do something very specific about it for the kids in the community.
Very cool.
Yeah, so that was the beginning of Elementz. In fact, the 4 young men started off with a program that they called Cop Watch, which was an attempt, I think, to both provide oversight in police interaction, but also to sort of liaise between the police and the kids and the people in the community. So try to bridge those gaps.
To have that communication and to have that platform for communication.
Correct.
That's important.
It was very, very important. And so as a result of that, these guys were also lovers of hip hop culture.
Yeah.
And they said, well, let's take this a step further and do something more impactful and also something that was more sustainable. And so Elementz was the outpouring of that. And so Elementz with a Z, is actually referencing the 4 elements of hip hop culture, which is DJing, MCing, graffiti, and breakdancing. There's actually also a 5th element. By the way, I teach a course in hip hop studies at CCM. And so there's a fifth element. The fifth element is knowledge or knowledge of self. But that's what Elementz, the word Elementz, is representing. And so that's been around for a number of years. And prior to me being on board, I was actually the vice president of impact at ArtsWave.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Right.
So ArtsWave is the city's largest arts funder. It's a wonderful organization. A lot of cool people work there. And, after COVID, I actually left ArtsWave, and there was this brief period of time where I was trying to figure out what the next step was. And then as COVID was reaching its peak, but people weren't really understanding what was happening, I was at a vitamin store looking for some echinacea because I'm like a holistic person.
Yeah.
So I was trying to figure out, how do I fight this? This disease or this virus or whatever.
Sure.
And I got a call from the then treasurer of Elementz board. Is a good friend of mine. His name is Terry Dickey. And Terry said, hey, I got a question for you. We are creating a succession plan for Elementz, and we were wondering if you'd be interested in being the ED. And before he even finished the statement, I was like,
yes.
Yep.
So you knew about Elementz because especially,
because of ArtsWave.
Because of ArtsWave.
Yeah, but also because hip hop culture was born August 11th, 1973. I was born November 3rd, 1973. And so hip hop has been
born into hip hop.
Yeah. Hip hop has been
literally
the backdrop of my life. It's the soundtrack of my life. It is the cultural aesthetic of my life. And so everything that is hip hop culture, I've experienced in one way or another. Probably not very good because I can't dance, but I tried. But all of those things, it's just
this
richness
is a video
of
podcast.
culture.
Are we going to get you to dance?
Heck no. My knees don't even work like that anymore. I'm 50. So no, but so it's always been there. Hip hop has always been there.
Right.
And so when I was at ArtsWave, we were a funder of Elementz. Supporting the work that they were doing, the impact that they were doing. And then when that opportunity presented itself, I was like, let's see what we can do.
There was no hesitation.
None whatsoever.
None
whatsoever. Yeah.
Yeah. So then what is the purpose of Elementz now? What I was looking online, so I'm sure everyone can go on to the website, but I want you to talk about like the purpose and the programs and the impact that it is making today in Cincinnati.
Yeah. Historically, like I mentioned, as a result of that, the response of Timothy Thomas and the four founders trying to get something for the kids to do, it was really programmatic. It was very, very programmatic, heavy for about 19 years. And so bringing the kids into the center, having them learn hip hop, dance, graffiti, and all the other elements of the culture was really the focus. When I got on board, I wanted to have a different impact.
Okay.
And there's a reason for that. I taught middle school and high school for 13 years, particularly in the inner city, but I also taught at some private and parochial schools as well. And typically when I asked kids from the inner city what they wanted to be, they would say one of five things: doctor, lawyer, athlete, entertainer, or barber or beautician. No one ever said, I want to be a videographer. No one ever said, I want to be a lighting engineer or a sound engineer or a graphic designer.
There was nothing artsy in what they talked about really at all.
No, and it was only because, it wasn't because they weren't capable.
No.
It certainly wasn't because they weren't talented. It was because they weren't exposed to those as provincial career pathways. And so what I wanted to be able to do with Elementz was add that very, very specific career orientation in the creative fields to the work that we do. So it moved from being only programmatic to something that was intentionally college and career prep focused.
And maybe even a little bit experiential, right?
Like, for sure.
It's all about experiences.
It's all about experiences, but those experiences now didn't serve as the end point. They became catalysts to them seeing themselves as videographers, and these are very intricate jobs. They're also very rewarding and gratifying jobs. But if a kid doesn't know that they can make a career out of being a lighting engineer, then they'll never pursue it.
Sure.
And so that was really the focus. As a former school teacher and an artist myself, I'm a visual artist, I'm a painter and a graphic designer. I wanted to make sure that the kids knew, at the very least, that these were possibilities And we're going to set up the infrastructure for you to be able to explore. Now, whether or not you choose it is totally on you, but you won't be able to say that I didn't know these existed.
Right. So. Right. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I think that goes for, it's an interesting conversation because honestly, I didn't really know that these were career choices. I think that's funny considering that we're on a video podcast in a video studio. I work for a video agency, but I did not realize when I was younger, or even probably 10 years ago, right? I saw video freelancers and I thought, how did they make money?
Yeah.
What exactly are they doing?
Yeah.
And then having the exposure here, even in my first year at Resolve, and in my head, I'm thinking, how can we get kids from Elementz to be exposed even more to come here, by the way? So we'll just keep that conversation going, me, you, and Scott. But in my first year at Resolve, I was more just experiencing and being exposed to, oh, this is how we do video shoots. Oh, this is how much equipment it needs.
Yes.
Oh, Steve actually is running all these different cameras, and we hire a grip, and we hire a gaffer, and we hire a makeup artist, and we hire a wardrobe artist, and we hire talent and cast and like all these things. And it's all right here.
Yep.
Cincinnati talent.
Yep.
Blew my mind.
Yep. And I'll tell you,
I felt very naive, by the way.
No, but I think when you think about the creative economy, right? I think that is the perception of a lot of people. One, I think the perception is that it's something that is froofy and over there and it doesn't really amount to much. Yeah. It doesn't solve a particular problem. You're not a doctor, so you're not making anybody healthier.
You're not saving lives.
You're not saving lives. Yeah. We're in a fire department or old fire department, but you're not a firefighter. Right. So I think that they miscategorize the importance of the arts, right? Yeah. Arts and culture drive us all, right? And then when you start looking at it from an economic standpoint, you start seeing like the fact that these things are revenue generators, right? And
you can set the price.
Yeah. And also, there are very few companies that don't have creative problem solvers who work for them and make major decisions, right? And so the Procter & Gambles of the world, although they have all these wonderful products, even the scientists who create those products have to solve those problems creatively. Yeah. But then you add the marketing people to create the marketing campaigns and the branding strategies and all the design stuff that helps that bring that to market. Those are industries, right? Yeah. Those are creative pathways. And so we definitely want our kids to be able to understand that those things are possible. And to your earlier point, one of the things that really sort of drove me to this direction was I was watching the Black Panther probably for the millionth time. And the only wonderful movie. Beautiful meeting. But the thing that really got me at one point was I was watching the end credits. And then you see all of those creative jobs roll down. Yep. And you're like, wait a second. It would be awesome if one of those names was a kid from Elementz. You know what I mean? Yeah. Makeup artist, costume designer, key grip, lighting engineer. Like, I would love. So that became a driver. That became the impetus for us to change our direction and make sure that we're focusing on the things that, as an end goal, can have one of our kids' names be in an end credit of a multi-million-dollar box office hit. Yeah. It's totally possible. For sure. I think especially out of Cincinnati. I mean, I think that, again, you having some roots within ArtsWave, you see that Cincinnati has a lot of creative talent. For sure. It's almost like we're this digital hub. Yes. Is how it feels, at least, which is really cool. And the other thing I would say is behind all those creatives, most have these very entrepreneurial driven spirits. So it's kind of an interesting relationship between creatives and entrepreneurs. Yeah. And the other part of it that's really important for me is to make sure that there's a lot of equity and diversity in these spaces. You know, working at ArtsWave and understanding the history of the Fine Arts Fund and how the arts have been financially and philanthropically supported, you recognize that there has historically been an imbalance as far as diversifying artists, arts organizations, prioritizing arts organizations of color. I mean, it's still a challenge, right? Sure. But when you recognize that a lot that drives culture, a lot that drives interest in the arts or even in other industries is the tastemakers behind that typically are people of color, right?
Yeah.
So I want those young people to know that they're not just consumers and they can't just be passive consumers. They are actually the creatives that drive all this. So let's get them behind the scenes at the meetings, at the table to make sure that their voices are being heard, but also when they put their fingerprints on whatever's being produced, that they can recognize that, yeah, we did that, right?
Yeah.
And there's some ownership. That's that entrepreneurialism.
Yeah.
There's ownership associated with that. And with that ownership, it opens up the possibilities. And that's basically what we want. We want to remove the barriers of doubt in the minds of any kid, particularly in Cincinnati. And we want them to be able to say, yeah, we can do that.
Yeah. We had Rico Grant on our podcast.
My guy, love Rico. Yeah.
Who doesn't love Rico?
That's my guy. That's my guy.
Right?
Yeah. Great guy.
He was proclaimed as the cultural ambassador of Cincinnati.
Yeah. It makes sense.
Via Brendan Cole, president of the chamber.
Yeah. Love Brendan too.
He was also a podcast guest. Yes.
Oh,
cool. But when Rico was on and we had a very great conversation, he said it's time to pass out some plates. And that was what he had mentioned. Like, I have a seat at the table. It's time for me to start passing out the plates, right? And when you were talking about the plates and I mean, I think that's kind of amazing. And to see him as the guy who has his hand in so many creative outlets, right? Like, you're talking about the gumbo, the art gallery, the barbershop, the clubs, I mean, just the exhibit at the museum center. I mean, talk about a role model, a mentor. Again, cultural ambassador of Cincinnati. I think he needs to be wearing that put label.
That on a t-shirt. Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
I think that's 100% true. I would also extend that a bit. My grandmother used to say, why ask for a seat at the table when you come from craftsmen who can build your own?
Yes. Ooh.
Why ask for crumbs when you cook better than them anyway?
Yes. Yes.
And so I'm a part of another nonprofit organization called Table, as a matter of fact. That is designed to bring that level of equity across those priority areas. But Rico is 100% right. And he is also not only talking about it, he's living it.
He's living it. That's, thank you for saying that, because that's a point that needs to be made, is that, and thankful for him, because he's so, I don't even know what the word is, but he's so honest.
Sure. Yeah.
Right? He's so honest, and he'll say exactly what needs to be said in such a way that it's kind and it's productive.
Yep.
Right.
And it's truthful.
And it's
Yeah.
He's so truthful.
I do love that about him. He used to be on the Elementz board.
I was gonna say, are we about to call him out about Elementz or what? Okay.
He used to be on the Elementz board. And right around that time he had opened up Gallery Gumbo.
Okay.
And it's just it was such a smart idea, such an innovative idea. Then he opened cinema, and now he has
Love on Fourth.
Yeah. Yes. And so he's just a serial entrepreneur and one
entrepreneur and art
and culture
ambassador. Yeah.
Yeah. At one, we have a mutual friend, this guy named Turan Stallings, and he does this symposium for young African-American students where he brings a whole lot of subject matter experts and professionals to come and inspire them. And Rico and I were we were on a panel together talking to a group of kids, and it was just an amazing opportunity to riff off each other and share the kind of information that both informs and inspires the next generation.
Yep.
Standing shoulder to shoulder with a guy named like Rico. He's a giant in this space. And so love the fact that he continues to do this work, and we're able to just continue to partner and collaborate. There's so many opportunities, but I also want kids to look at Rico and say, yeah, he's from Cincinnati.
Yeah.
We can do that too.
Yeah.
He's already navigated certain spaces So they have now a clear pathway. Right.
And I think that's what Rico would want. Like, if he was in this room, he would say, yeah, come with me. Let's go. Not follow me, but come with me and let's continue to carve some of these paths together. Right.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So tell me more about, like, you walk into Elementz and kind of give us a visual. What are we walking into? What's the space like?
Well, so there's so this is a very complicated story. Okay. So historically, and for the last, I don't know, maybe a decade, we were on the corner of Race and Green, 1640 Race Street. We have since moved from there. What has happened is, as the space downtown has been gentrified, there has the people who were there's a criminal element that was sort of pushed and mushed together, and they all ended up on Green Street somehow, right in front of our door. And so we've had bullets go through our windows and all this kind of stuff, a lot of drug activity. And so it was a safe and important strategic move for us to move from there. And so we have since moved from there, and we now are at the Digital Futures building with the University of Cincinnati.
1819? No, it's different.
It's across from the 1819
yes.
building. Okay. Yeah. And so in that building is this cross section of scientists and labs that solve very intricate problems, and the cross section between not human resources, but nonprofit organizations that focus on a whole lot of social issues. And so science and social issues and social solutions come together and converge. And so Elementz is a part of that nonprofit cohort. And so we have a lab on the third floor, and then we specifically call it our hip hop cultural research lab. And in that space is where all of our brainstorming happens. And since, it's not necessarily a space that is easily accessible to our students, we decided that we're going to go and meet our students where they are. And so all of our work, and we reach roughly about 2,000 kids a year.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. All of our work, we go to all the schools. We take all of our work on the road. Yeah. All of our dance classes, all of our culturally art specific classes, we partner with Cincinnati Public Schools. We partner with Mount Healthy, North College Hills School District.
And what age groups are we talking about?
We're talking about roughly about the age of 10 to about 22.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a wide range.
It's a very wide range because...
But it's you think about 10-year-olds.
Yeah.
That's fun.
But when you think about hip hop culture, hip hop is probably the most accessible American art form because the barrier of entry is so low.
Okay, so then just define for me hip hop culture.
Oh my gosh. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So
define it for me. Yeah. I would love it.
So the culture itself, it's a very hard thing to define. I can give you a broader description. Okay. So... and I'll do it by way of story. So in 1973, a guy named Clive Campbell, who was known to everyone in the community as DJ Kool Herc, on August 11th, he threw a back-to-school party for his little sister Cindy at 1520 Sedgwick Avenue in the Bronx. Okay. And in this space, that became the spark that ignited hip-hop culture. And what he ultimately ended up doing was he recognized as a local DJ that in the vinyl records that he would play, there's a part on most of those soul records that had a break beat, right? And that you can see it on the record. It's the deeper, darker grooves on the record. What he wanted to be able to do was extend the time that the kids can dance. And the part that he would do, he would look at that break beat and he would just take two of the same record and put it on two different turntables and basically did what he called the merry-go-round. He would switch from record to record on the same break beat, extending the break beat, giving the kids more time to dance on the break, inventing break dancing.
I had no idea.
Yeah. So that was the start of the culture. And when I say it's the most accessible, all he had was his turntables, his father's record collection, and an outlet.
And an idea. Yeah.
And he just needed power. And that became the foundation of the culture. And from there, more ideas came. It was, okay, we're dancing in these traditional ways. Let's reinvent a way of dancing, which is a combination of capoeira, which is a Brazilian martial arts, and the movies that they were watching, and, you know, all these kinds of different dances that they merged together to do backspins and windmills and all these kind of different complicated, nuanced dancing. And then the graffiti, which is very, very old, just became a part of the culture because a lot of the people who were engaged in the inner city were tagging stuff. One of those was Jean-Michel Basquiat, who at the time, his tag was Samo. That was his artist name. And then he goes on to become one of the greatest non-objective artists of all time. And so graffiti becomes a part of it. And then for a while, the DJ was the center of all of this, until they needed someone to keep the party hyped. And so then they got the guy who was the hype man. One of the first was a guy named Busy B. And he would get on the mic and just start saying like rhymes and talking about people and where they came from and getting the crowd hype. And then the MC began to emerge as the forefront or the voice of the culture. And then it became more intricate. So it wasn't just these simple rhymes. It was like, let's make songs. Let's create visual stories. Let's do what Run DMC calls making something so clear to the ear that it's sometimes seen. Like it's that. And so then the MC emerges. And so you bring all of these things together, and that is hip hop culture. And it's because of these so many disparate connective points. There was no price point in getting in. So when you think about classical music, you got to buy the instrument. You got to pay for the lessons. You got to maintain that. You want to be a ballet dancer. That's a very expensive. Very expensive art form. Parents who have kids in dance. My daughter was a ballet dancer for years.
You know firsthand how expensive it is.
Toe shoes are expensive. Oh my gosh. So
the whole wreck your body too.
Yes. So all very expensive. And so what we identify as white Western European art forms there's a barrier of entry that's pretty high. For hip hop, it was, if you want to dance, let's go get an old cardboard box and put it on the ground.
On the ground, and you can dance on that.
And you can dance on that. And so, and it also combined, because they couldn't get the violins or the instruments, they took what they had at their disposal. They took their records at the record collections their parents had. So they didn't need the instruments. The instrumentation was already packaged. From the visual art standpoint, it was spray paint on the wall. Right. So you couldn't go to the museum. You couldn't afford it. But we can go down the street, right? And vandalize something.
Well, yes, but
it's still art. It's art. Beautiful art. It's beautiful art.
Yeah, but like, Damian, like, I'm thinking about this as you're talking about it, and I've never, again, no one's ever given me a definition. To be truthful, I've never looked it up. But no one's ever given me a definition, and also how creative and innovative as a start. That's just the principle and the foundation of hip hop culture.
It is the culture.
It's creative from the very beginning.
It's very creative and opportunistic. So it started in 1973. In 1977, New York City had a blackout, and the entire city shut down. It was a very opportune time for those who were loving the culture, who also needed equipment, to basically steal the equipment, because the security systems were down on all the stores. So all the stores were looted, and you got all this DJ equipment. They brought all that stuff to bear, and that became the foundation of what we know today as hip hop culture. But I do want to make a distinction. What is on the radio that you hear most today is not hip hop culture.
That's pop.
It's rap music.
Okay.
And there's a difference. Rapping is something you do. Culture is something you live. That's an important understanding.
Okay.
And so when you're talking about the culture in its entirety, you're not just talking about the commercialized rapping of it. It's truly embodying and living the principles of the culture. Wow. Okay. That literally, I have never heard anybody give that kind of explanation before. Yeah, you should come to my class.
I was actually thinking that, like, I would love to come to your class.
Yeah, I have a lot of kids who are, it's wonderful though, a lot of kids who are classically trained musicians who took the class because they thought it was an easy A. It is an easy
A. Okay. Because remember back to our original conversation, you're kind.
Yes, I'm very kind. It's a very easy A, but it's also, they leave the class extremely informed in ways that they didn't think. But it's also ways that they can transfer a sensibility to the work that they do. And I'll explain this. All of the kids that I teach at CCM are aspiring musicians, classically trained musicians. But the job market for classically trained musicians is very difficult to break into.
Yeah.
And so what I wanted them to understand was you can apply hip hop sensibilities in marketing yourself.
Oh.
Innovative ways to truly market yourself. And if you do that, then you can change how you're being perceived to potential employers, right? And so we would do this project as a capstone project at the end of each quarter, each semester. And they would basically have to brand themselves or rebrand themselves in a way that was more compelling using the sensibilities of hip hop, which is we're going to take what we have at our disposal.
Right.
We're not going to go out and purchase all this expensive stuff. Mm-hmm. And we're going to maximize what we have at our disposal and turning it into something extremely brilliant, extremely creative, and something that can be compelling to someone else. And that's what that project does. But it also has this sort of secondary effect where all these kids are saying, wow, now I see myself differently, which is what hip hop does.
Yeah. Hip hop sensibilities.
Yeah.
Did you coin that?
No.
You should.
I should.
It should be trademarked.
Yeah.
Damian.
Yep.
Hip hop sensibilities.
Hip hop sensibilities. Hashtag.
Hashtag. So tell me, what should we be excited about with Elementz?
Oh my gosh.
Tell me what we should be excited about and what we should look forward to.
What I'm hoping for is I'm hoping to build a workforce pipeline of the next generation of creative problem solvers. Again, using these hip hop sensibilities. I would love for all the businesses, small and large, to recognize that in Cincinnati, they have access to a talent pool.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so in order for that talent pool to actually, be more robust, we want them all to come through Elementz and get this level of understanding and how to make their skill sets applicable to wherever industries have a need.
Yep.
Right.
Right.
And then,
you can kind of stream them through Elementz,
absolutely.
right? As
absolutely.
like, hey, we are the talent pool. If you want creative hip hop sensibilities, but if you want people who, they understand this principle, that principle, et cetera, you need
creative
to come to us.
Problem solvers,
Creative which is huge.
Yes, who think outside the box, who can look at an empty firehouse and turn it into a videography studio, right? A production studio, right? And see fewer problems and more solutions. That takes a creative muscle that needs to be developed. And particularly for kids in the inner city, they have different priorities and different challenges.
I was going to say different problems.
Different problems.
Yep.
And so what we want to be able to do is sort of short circuit how they get access to that infrastructure and bring elements to them. And so the end result could potentially be, the P&Gs or the Fifth Thirds of the world, instead of spending their recruitment dollars outside of the region, they literally can come to Elementz or any of the schools that we partner with and say, hey, do you guys have people who can do graphic design, social media? Do you guys have people who can shoot this commercial for us? And we can say, absolutely.
Right.
I know a kid named Dearest Hope, who is our videographer who went through Elementz and then went on to college and now is a fully functioning videographer himself. And he can do all those things. Or there's a host of other kids who can do those things. And so that's really the goal. I want the city of Cincinnati to recognize that it has gems of creative people, a whole resource, a plethora of individuals who can solve all those problems. And I want the city to change because of that. I have a love-hate relationship with Cincinnati, by the way.
Well, I've grown up here my whole life. And I'll say I've seen a ton of change within the city. But I have a different lens than you have with the city. Yeah. And I'm okay to admit that. And I think it's strong that people should talk about that, that we have a different lens. Yeah. Number one, I grew up in suburban area, right? So
where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Westchester.
Okay, yeah.
We're up there.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't have an east side, west side situation or problem, but so coming down to Cincinnati was a trip for us, really was. And we kind of were in the farming area in Westchester, especially at the time that I was growing up. I won't tell you how old I am, but it was farming community. My bus driver also had a farm and we went there on field trips, right? Like that was the kind of community it was. Yeah. I didn't grow up in the city. Yeah. So it's a different lens.
It's a very different lens. In the city, there are, and there have been since I can remember, invisible lines of demarcation that separate everybody from race, class, ethnicity, religion, sexual orientation, and oddly enough, where you went to high school. I think that may be a Cincinnati question. Like everybody asks, like where, but it's a way for people to immediately compartmentalize you.
Yes.
Like if you went to Taft, you're different from if you went to Walnut Hills.
Sure.
And if you tell them where you went to high school, it's easy to put you in a box. In a box.
Yes.
And so
wait, did you grow up here?
I did.
Okay, I was just making sure. Okay.
I went to SCPA, by the way, just in case you were.
I wasn't gonna ask you. Hey, I already know what I need to know about you. You are prepared. You are kind, right? Like I already tagged you.
You tagged me. But those lines of demarcation is really the hate part that I have about the city. Yep. The fact that the love part is that those lines can be erased if we do more things like this, have conversation with one another, and understand that where we went to high school is really irrelevant. Yeah. The kind of people that we are is most important. Yes. And that's what I think, the future of Cincinnati, and I like that in my mind, I call it New Cincy. Do
you have hope for us?
I do. Oh my God, I have so much. I love the direction that city council is going in. I love the mayor. I have so many people on city council who I admire. But we still have challenges, and those individuals they call us. Yes. They say, people like Councilman Reggie Harris. I was in Washington D.C. at a conference, and a young man had been murdered downtown. And by young, I mean he was probably like 11.
In Washington, D.C.?
No.
In Cincinnati?
In Cincinnati. Okay, he was like 11 years old.
Oh, God, you can't tell my mama heard that. Okay.
Yeah. And so I'm in D.C. and Councilman Harris calls me and he says, hey, we need Elementz to help us solve these problems. Can you get on a call with us on tomorrow morning at like 8:00? And I was like, tomorrow's Saturday. He was like, yeah. And I was like, done. Right. And so it's like,
so is that to you the kind of progress that our city needs? And
not responding to those things, but doing the kind of work that prevent them from happening in the beginning.
That's what I mean. Sorry.
Yes.
That's the kind of progress that we still need to continue.
We still need to do that. Yeah. Yes. And we still need to work with people who have a strong understanding of the history and the struggle, because those are people who have laid down foundation, people like Iris Rowley and Ozzie Davis. And you know what I mean?
Yeah,
those
Rowley.
Folks love those people.
Donna Baker Jones,
people who are in those positions of leadership right now. Christy Coons at the Urban League. Who care,
and here's what I'll say, who don't just throw money at problems.
Yes. They put their heart and their soul in the solutions so that we can, again, create an environment where the young people have an opportunity to thrive and the older people have an opportunity to look back and say, this is way better than what it was when I was their age. Yeah. And now I have hope for the future. And I'm one of those old people who can look back and say, because I rolled up my sleeves and I'm standing next to people and sitting and talking to people who have that same aspiration, we can make this better. Yeah. Right. And I have young kids.
I was just going to say, parent to parent.
My youngest kid is 12. And so I'm like, I want Cincinnati to be a different experience for him as a 12-year-old than it was for me.
You're also raising a 12-year-old boy.
Yeah. A young black boy. That's
a young black boy.
That's way different.
How scary is that?
It is very scary. Okay. Because, we still live in a racial society, a racist society. Yeah. And so what I want for him is way different. So it is, I'm very, very protective, as you might imagine.
I bet you are.
I'm kind of big. So I want to make sure that my kids have an opportunity to live healthy lives. And I have 2 sons and I have 2 older daughters who live in New York and Alabama. They go to school. But, I want to make sure that even for my kids, but also for the kids that we serve at Elementz, that these challenges that were the reason Elementz started, the murder of a young black man, that those things no longer exist.
Right.
And that the next iteration of Elementz won't be because of a tragedy, but because of some kind of success and triumph that we've had as a city.
Right. Right. I just want to get back to this whole parent to parent, right? So I have a 12-year-old and an almost 10-year-old, girl and boy. And I will say that, again, we live in Westchester. We don't live in a very city-centric environment. We don't live in an urban environment. But I love asking the questions to help me not raise my kids in an environment where they are, I don't know what the words are, shocked or blind or unexposed. We'll go back to the word exposed, right? And I have so many conversations with friends just to ask questions. And I say it in a very humble, transparent way, like, help me be a better parent to expose my kids to the people, to the cultures, to the arts, to everything, so that they can grow up in a way where they become the next leaders who have, they can lead with compassion, not just throw money at problems, but to your point, roll their sleeves up and lead with compassion.
Yeah.
Right?
I believe that this next generation, there's an interesting thing about this next generation, starting with the millennial generation, I think that they are less focused on the things that divide us and more focused on shared values.
Shared value. Ooh.
Yeah.
Okay.
I believe that those are individuals who look at, the fact that they like hip hop culture, irrespective of their race, their ethnicity, their socioeconomic status. And so they use it as a point of connection, right?
And I think they're more connected to social justice, I think, more than ever.
Yeah, but I think that they're connected to social justice without the political perspective of social justice. I think they are connected to it because it is the right thing to do, not because it's a political slant. They're human beings, and they're recognizing that my black friend or my Jewish friend or my gay friend, they're human beings too. You know what I mean? And so it's like, there's this old Janet Jackson song on her. She had a album called Rhythm Nation. I'm dating myself now. No. But there's a part of that. There's a part of one of her songs where she says, "In complete darkness, we are all the same. It's only our knowledge and wisdom that separates us. Don't let your eyes deceive you." And that, I think, is the mindset of this generation. It's like this person sitting next to me may come from downtown and I come from Westchester, but we're human beings.
We're human beings.
They woke up, they wanted to eat this morning. I got to eat this morning. You know what I mean? Like, they love their parents. I love my parents. Like, we're human beings.
You're up in the garage doing woodworking. My husband might be brushing his teeth, bothering me when I'm trying to sleep. I mean, we're connected, Damian.
There's so many things that bring us together than there are that separate us.
And that's the most important thing.
That's the most important. And that, to be honest with you, that is the unifying power of hip hop culture. Because if you think about it, again, there is no barrier of entry. So the only barrier of entry for being a part of hip hop culture is that you're dope. That's it.
I actually do not think I'm dope, so I'm not sure I'm actually part of hip hop culture. We can ask Steve. Steve can tell you that I'm not very cool at all.
Can confirm.
And my kids will also tell you that I'm not cool, but maybe I can be an honorary.
No, to someone,
can I
you're
pass
dope.
The dope test?
No, to someone, you're dope. And it's
yes, you're right. To my dogs.
There is someone who says, no, Jesse is dope. And I think, when I say that about the culture, I mean, because these are art forms that are skill-based art forms. You know what I mean? And so if you are, for a really long time, it was black and brown people who dominated hip hop culture, and then Eminem came along. But prior to Eminem, this is why dopeness is a criteria. Prior to Eminem, there was Vanilla Ice, and Vanilla Ice was terrible.
He was not dope.
He was terrible, right?
Okay, if I'm being compared to Vanilla Ice, I definitely hit the dope factor. I just wanted to be really clear on that.
Yeah, you're way doper than Vanilla Ice.
I hope I'm more dope than Vanilla Ice. Oh my God.
But the point of it being that it's not a racial thing.
Right.
It is not a socioeconomic thing.
Yes.
Eminem grew up in a trailer park. That was his form. I mean, that was a similar background to a lot of the young black and brown kids who grew up in the Bronx, right?
Yes.
And so understanding that struggle, understanding that those challenges they basically said, but I have this gift. And this gift is not enough. I have to hone this skill, right? And I'm going to put in the hours and the time.
There's a relentlessness.
Yes. To be the best DJ, to be the best MC, to be the best dancer, but also to be able to parlay that and say, I'm also going to transfer this to other genres, other sectors. I'm going to do what Jay-Z says, and he says, I'm not a businessman, I'm a businessman, right? And so it's like, now he's not just an MC, he is a multi-billion-dollar executive in all of these different spaces.
Yes.
So that becomes then the multiplying factor of hip hop culture. So it's not just where it starts, it's where it expands to. And that's what we're hoping to do at Elementz as well.
I am so happy that you said yes to come on to this podcast.
I'm glad you guys invited me. This is great.
No, I have learned a ton. I guarantee our listeners and viewers have learned a ton. And I also think it's cool that you think I'm doper than Vanilla Ice.
Dope.
But
you're dope.
I'm dope.
Just because you spell your name cool. It's
yeah, right? Yeah, we have that too. We have that common. Yeah. No, thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited. And can I come check out the space and be with Elementz? And can we have, can we maybe have something here?
We can absolutely.
I think that would be really fun.
And you guys would definitely be invited to the premiere of the Elementz documentary, which will be debuting August 30th of this year.
Good.
Filmed, produced by everybody on staff, led by Darius Hope, who, like what I mentioned earlier, is our videographer. And
talented.
he is very talented, very, very talented, very strong visionary person. So he's creating this documentary that tells exactly all the things that we've talked about today, the history of Elementz, where Elementz currently is, and then the future of Elementz. That's what's going to be in that documentary. It's going to be at Memorial Hall.
Love that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's going to be our biggest event to date.
All right. I'll be there.
You were invited. You're in the dope VIP section.
I love it. I love it. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Are you ready?
Uh-huh.
Ice, Jesse. Dun, 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 dun. Ice, Jesse. Dun, 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 dun. How does it feel to know you're doper than Vanilla Ice? Like officially, like without question.
Well, here's the deal. I was nervous that I wasn't more dope than him in Damian's comparison originally. So I feel really good about myself right now.
Vindication.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Suck on it, Ice baby.
What a great chat you guys had. Like literally, like just listening to Damian speak and everything. I kind of want to go to Elementz and take his class, because I was just enthralled by everything he was saying.
I honestly had no idea the actual origin of hip hop culture. Number one, I didn't realize that it was really just this idea of there's no barrier to entry. It's a matter of really tapping into someone's creativity. And I thought that was super cool. And just this whole idea of creating breakdance and where that came from. Those were two things that I just didn't know about. And I really loved the way that he went into that origin. That was probably one of my favorite parts of the whole conversation.
Yeah, same. Like we all learned something today, Jesse.
We did all learn something today.
And I love that he's helping the next generation of kids kind of become their own human beings. And I love how that little anecdote he had about like taking classically trained students, teaching them hip hop, but specifically using the tools learned in that class to market themselves so that they can have an easier time getting a job in classically trained music when they move on. Yeah.
And basically it's a matter of just use what you have in front of you. And I think a lot of us can take from that. We all think we have to have more, better, and just kind of collect all this shit basically in our lives, when in reality, why don't we just pause for a second, look around, see what we have at our disposal, what we can get our hands on, use that to create the next best thing. I think that was, honestly, from a business perspective, that was one of the biggest takeaways that I had was, if I'm sitting in my office trying to think about something that we need to do at Resolve, for example, I need to really think about what do I already have at our disposal? What skill set do we already have at our disposal? What tools, what solutions, what are things that we can just do now? And so that was one of the takeaways that I had as well.
Yeah. Let's go use our mitts, Jesse. Let's go out and change the world with our hands.
With our hands. All right, let's go do it.
All right.
Bye. Hey, guess what? You made it to the end of the podcast. That's awesome. And you know what you get for that? You get more content. Check out this content from the Resolve team, all about Rediscover Your Story podcast content right here. You click on it, you might get a treat. Find out. Steve, make it stop.